Hello, welcome back to the Reality Roundup. I'm Mariama. Today I'm by myself as my co host Maddie is out gallivanting around the world. But today we're talking about MTV's The Challenge All Stars Episode 3. I'll be doing it by myself. Um, we had quite an episode today. Let me just be real. We start off right where we left off from last episode. I guess the aftermath of the KellyAnne versus Sylvia you got dogs, I have a family discussion that those two were having, and they're both in their respective corners the next morning consulting with their uh, respective cornermen. We get Sylvia talking to her fellow Lavender lady Shane, and we get Kellyanne talking to Frank to receive counsel. I'm really high on Frank. Like I'm really high on Frank since back in the day, and in this episode, in this moment, like in the first 5 minutes of the episode, Frank reminds me why I love him so much. Frank is here to bring villainy back to the challenge. This is the type of challenge gameplay that I want to see. This is the type of manipulation, the type of carrying on, the type of coercive um emotional bonding that I want to see on the challenge. Frank is talking about how he is working really hard to make Kellyanne feel comfortable and that he'll never vote her in, when in fact he cannot wait to vote her in. It's a little much, but we see a lot of Frank in this episode, and all of it was like really really good. Now, after we give Frank and after we get Sylvia and Kellyanne's respective side of the story of what happened, we see a brief conversation with Sam and Anissa, and they're both talking about how they feel about being back how Sam feels about being back after a long time away, how she wasn't sure that she was going to be comfortable, the sort of like physical um, exertion or toll that is necessary for to be competitive in the challenge. She talks about the weather, etc. And I just know that Sam is going to do bad in the upcoming challenge. But before we get there, Adam is sick. So Adam and Steve and Nicole are all pictured kind of speaking together, and we see Adam. He looks dog sick. He's in and out of the bathroom, and they both kind of see the writing on the wall. They are easy pickings for the rest of the challengers to throw into elimination if they don't win, and that's obviously going to be a lot more difficult with Adam being sick. But with that being said, we get to I'm moving through fast because without a co-host, I'm trying to just make a short video recap today. But I do have some like sort of like strategic things that are set in place that I want to talk about later on in the episode. But for now, we get into today's daily challenge, and the challenge was called Ball Buster. They essentially all the teams are thrown into a pit filled with a bunch of different sized and different colored balls. Corresponding to their team color for the day. They have to collect and deposit 10 balls to a basket on the other side of a course. So they'll collect 10 balls from a pit and then bring it through an obstacle course and deposit it into their corresponding team basket, color team basket. Um, and we see some strategies in play. So teams like Nani and Turbo, Devin and Leroy, um, Amber and Fessy are doing two trips. So they're taking 5 balls at a time. They take the time to get through, get some of the smaller balls, and then move that through with less trips. And then we see some other teams like Veronica and Katie and Dario and Ashley K who are well, Dario and Ashley K specifically are going for speed. They want to take 2 balls and get as many quick trips as they can. And Veronica and Katie sort of make a mention that like, hey, this is not our challenge to win. We're not gonna win. We're just gonna take it easy, put in a good effort, and call it a day. I think one of the really key things that came from it is we see Sam struggling a little bit, but she honestly did a lot better, especially at the beginning. Did very well for herself. She talked about getting herself out of the pit without help. She talked about getting through the obstacle, or we saw clips of her getting through the obstacle. Again, I think I am once again asking the challenge producers to limit the amount of confessionals we see during challenges and elimination round and play these challenges like in whole, at least for portions of it. Like, give me 45 straight minutes of just challengers running and doing things, and like at during the same period of time on the course. Like, it's really hard. It was really hard to make sense of placement of teams because you're just getting these quick like cuts back and forth, and then there's all this interslicing of the confessional talk. I don't think the confessionals are like usually valuable, like are super valuable. I think what would be more valuable is having a Chiron that displays placement at that period of time, and then just give me like 45 seconds, 50 seconds straight play on the challenge. Like on the show called The Challenge, we spend a criminally short amount of time on the actual challenges and eliminations that happen on the show. But after it's all said and done, Devin and Leroy are first to deposit their 10 balls and get to their puzzle, which was the second phase of the challenge. We do see it kind of become close at a certain point with Fessy and Amber. So, again, it's all of the usual suspects up at the top of the board. It's the Devin and Leroy's, the Fessy and Ambers, the Nani and Turbos, etc. And ultimately, Devin and Leroy get it done first, and they win on the day. Now, this is Devin and Leroy's first daily win, and this is their first time going to be able to. This will be their first time to vote in a team. Um, it is very clear that the House wants Adam and Steve, so much so that we don't even really get too much footage of castmates talking about who we're going to put it on. Like, we know it's Adam and Steve. They know it's Adam and Steve, and Adam and Steve know it's Adam and Steve. Okay, so back at the house, we see Adam is still struggling, still very, very sick. He's so sick at this point that he has something, I guess, for his sinuses. He's getting steam into his nose. And then we see a conversation between KellyAnne and Sylvia. I will say in the challenge, I did take note that KellyAnne and Sylvia already seem to be communicating quite well. They already seem to have kind of made a lot of ground toward their working relationship from what we saw in the last episode, but we do get a conversation of the two of them on the swings, and it was really nice. I will say Sylvia is one of my favorite people. Sylvia is one of my favorite people that's on this season of All Stars. I have I think really highly of her. I've really liked her honestly since Invasions, but like I really became a huge fan of her on the season that she did with Joss, Final Reckoning, right? Yeah. Especially on Final Reckoning. I thought she looked really good, and we hadn't seen a lot of her since then until we saw her on All Stars 3. So I was really happy to have her back. She has the worst track record on All Stars. Like, get back on the flagship, Sylvia. It's not working for her on All Stars. But her and KellyAnne do talk. They do kind of find some common ground. This conversation goes so well because I don't know. I was kind of thinking that like this is starting off good, but they're not gonna be able to get through this. But it goes so well, and it's a really nice moment for the both of them. After this, we then see Anissa and Ashley. Ashley is basically frustrated with Anissa's work ethic, and I'm gonna say like I don't. This isn't the first time that a teammate of Anissa's have been frustrated with the perception of her work ethic like in the house. We see clips of Anissa kind of lounging around, chilling, and Ashley's very frustrated in the workout room talking to Turbo and Nicole and a few other people. And we'll come back to this later, but yeah, it was a bit of an interesting piece of footage that they left in the show here for us. Now, getting into the house vote, for some reason, when TJ goes to moderate the House vote, Adam takes this as an opportunity to speak up and let everybody know that he is dog sick and he really just needs a night off. Like he really needs a night off to regroup and regain his strength and come back as a better as a better Adam. And if anybody would like to go ahead and volunteer in his place today, he would greatly appreciate it. And for the life of me, I've said this a few times already on the pod. I cannot believe how many times I've had to say this about the actions of challenge veterans specifically, that you do not wait until the vote to politic. And you certainly don't do it in this way in the group. Like, I think this could have worked for Adam. Like, I think there is a world where Adam leverages his historic performance in All Stars on this season of All Stars so far and say, hey, Steve and I are a good team. We're gonna win any day now. Like, we're gonna have power any day now, and when we have power, we promise not to vote you in. So there are 11 teams voting, including Adam and Steve. No, there are 10 teams voting. There are 11 teams still in the game, I believe. Let me double check that. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. So there are 11 teams voting. Adam and Steve need 6 votes to keep themselves out of elimination. And then they would need Leroy and Devin not to throw them in as well. At this point in the game, there are 11 teams voting for the House vote into the elimination round. Adam and Steve need 6 votes to keep themselves out of the elimination. They have their own votes, so they're obviously not going to vote for themselves. They already have Katie and Veronica, who are going to vote wherever they want, and then they have Melissa and Nicole, who they're very tight with. As long as they're not asking those two, that Melissa to vote in Big T, I think they have Melissa and Nicole, right? And because they have Melissa and Nicole, it's not a stretch to say that they can get Big T and Corey. Big T just votes with her best friend, Melissa, and you can probably get a Nani and Turbo and a Amber and Fessy, the other 2 star holding teams. And if I'm Adam and Steve, I talk to each of those teams individually. I say, hey, I got I've got numbers. I'm getting numbers, but I need you. You're the last team that I need in order to keep myself out. Can we vote in Davon and Shane? Can we vote in KellyAnne and Sylvia? Are any of those teams really, is KellyAnne and Sylvia off limits for any of those teams really? Can we vote in Anissa and Ashley? Are any of those teams like, no, 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 not maybe Ashley's off limits for Fessy, but what about Frank and Sam? Like, if they leave Dario and Ashley K out of it, I think they can even get those other 5 teams to vote in Frank and Sam. Like, I don't think any of those people is like a no go for Frank and Sam. So you talk to each of those people, you go, hey, Steve and I, Adam and Steve, we have a good record so far in the game. We've been one of the top teams. We were second place on the building thing. We were the first team to earn a star in the inaugural challenge, in the first challenge. And we will be at the top once again. We're always near the top in these challenges. We will win. And on a day that we win, we won't say your names. We won't say your names for the winner's vote. I think that's a deal that any of those teams take. I just thought it was like, it was a little funny, but like, honestly, a little disappointing, because this was an opportunity to like play. This was like an opportunity to strategize and play the game and try to make something interesting happen. Not even just from a house well, I was going to say not even just from a TV viewership perspective, but from like a house perspective, like, right? But for whatever reason, they choose not to do that. They are the House vote, and the only people that don't vote their way are Katie and Veronica, who vote in Big T and Corey. Yeah, so they go in 10 out of the 11 teams voting for them. Now, after this happens, we get a conversation with Adam and Steve and Devin, and or yes, I think maybe just Adam, but Adam talks to Devin, and they basically say, "Hey, we want Frank and Sam. We know that Sam is really the reason that this trend of us being voted in repeatedly has happened. We want Frank and Sam." And Devin, I said this about the reunion on the Battle of the Errors reunion show. Devin has become kind of insufferable, but this was a really great scene. This set up like a really good scene for me. So Devin is like non-committal to Adam, and it's like, hey, I'm gonna have a couple of conversations with a few other people, and then I'll make my decision after that, which is fine. And he goes, and one of the people that he speaks to is um is Frank. And again, the challenge really has missed Frank. and it's a blast from the past. It's from an era long gone, but Frank is playing the game of strategic manipulation that Devin thinks he's playing. Like every confessional of Devin is this like it's it's this like Wes-esque sort of like masterminding thing that he's trying to convince us that he got going on, and people are just falling over themselves to like do exactly what's in my best interest. But honestly, Frank is the person that's playing that game. And again, you know Frank is the person that's playing the best strategic game because Frank has the least desirable team to be strategically tied to. Like his partner sucks. No shade to Sam, but like Sam is terrible, and I don't see a day where Sam and Frank win a daily challenge unless other teams decide to throw. Maybe trivia, but like honestly, let's be for real. Like they at this point they haven't performed well at all for any team to sort of be trying to curry favor with them above other teams, I'd say. And if they go into elimination, like I'd be assuming at this point that they're certainly going home, right? Unless they get like a really really lucky break. So again, Frank is back in a big way. He's running the show and he's staying stealth, and people are falling over themselves to do his bidding. Like even the confessionals that we get from Devin and Leroy that are like, "Hey, we have nothing against Sylvia and KellyAnne, which is the team that Frank wants to go in instead of him and Sam. But like we're gonna do it because we want to like maintain this relationship where with Frank of all people. Um, yeah, welcome back, Frank. Welcome back. So Adam and Steve do in fact go in, and they don't get the team that they want to go against, which is Frank and Sam. And Devin and Leroy elect to send KellyAnne and Sylvia into the elimination round. Now, the elimination round that these guys play in today is called Piled It On. They essentially, both teams have to solve a puzzle, and then once they solve a puzzle, they must grab and collect rope from a forever unspooling spool of 200 feet or so of rope, and they have to hold it in the air without touching the ground for 5 minutes. And if it touches the ground, it touches the ground before those 5 minutes are up, they have to start over. Now we don't actually see anybody's rope touch the ground. Adam and Steve get to the rope holding portion about 20 seconds or so below KellyAnne and Sylvia, about half a minute, and KellyAnne and Sylvia, they're just kind of praying for a miracle to happen that Adam and Steve drop the rope and have to start over because it gets down to the wire and it's pretty apparent that both teams have a strategy that's working for them. I don't know. So this brings me to sort of like the complaints that I'm going to have so far through the first 3 episodes of this season. Just looking at the way this challenge played, looking at the way sort of the other 2 challenges have played, there was nothing really about this elimination. I thought this elimination was a bit of a dud. I think they could have kept this elimination and just changed the final portion to, instead of having to like hold rope, which wasn't particularly exciting to watch on TV at all. It wasn't exciting at all. If they had the same exact thing and the teams had to, like, let's say the rope was already like sprawled out and sort of in disarray around the arena floor, and they had to like turn a wheel or crank the wheel to re-spool the rope back up, I think that would have been interesting. I also think it would have been interesting in this particular elimination, especially where Adam was sick, because obviously Adam and Steve are stronger than Sylvia and KellyAnne. But in a world where Adam is really sick, maybe he tires out, he fatigues a little bit quicker, he's already tired, and the girls are able to catch up. Because, like I said, they were only like 20 seconds or so behind the guys. Like, I, yeah, I don't think it was like maybe a little more, but it certainly wasn't a full minute, right? They can make that up. Like we've seen Sylvia be very formidable as a physical competitor in this game previously. We've seen KellyAnne as well. Even though she's one of the smaller women on the show, she's pretty strong for her size. I think like that would have just been more interesting. And even from like a TV perspective, there could have been kind of more mystery put around it. They kept zooming in on that little bit of chain that was hanging between like Steve's leg as if like that was gonna fall down and touch the ground. There was no suspense in this. Once you see the boys standing there holding their ropes and 3 minutes have gone by, like the rope is unspooling so slowly that like when you get to the last minute and a half, the last minute, you're like nobody's gonna drop it. Like they have enough time to adjust every time it kind of seems like, oh, like maybe this is it. It's not it. So I would have liked to see that. And then that brings me to my other complaint. I would have liked to see that change in the elimination. And then my other complaint is I really do not like seasons of the challenge of mixed pairs. Meaning not meaning like female male pairs. I mean competition mixed pairs where you have all male teams competing against male female pairs competing against two female pairs. I mean, yeah, a pair of two women. I don't like those types of seasons because I think it's really hard to balance challenges and eliminations that don't lean too far into the strengths of the males or too far into the strengths of the women that may be on the show. And oftentimes, most of the time, we just don't know how to balance like the physical element, so it leans too far into the strength of like the men on the show. And I especially hated for a rival season. I liked the original rivals format the best. Like that's actually my favorite sort of like pairs formatting where it's a bracket of all female pairs and a bracket of all male pairs, and the women are competing against the women, the men are competing against the men, and your winners are going to be you crown a female pair win and then you crown a male pair win. I also think for the rivals like motif, it doesn't work well a lot of the times when you partner like male female rival pairs because those rival like the legendary rivalries of the show are typically made in elimination rounds, right, with someone sending somebody home or getting somebody voted in. And since most of the history of the show, we have competed male versus male eliminations, female versus female eliminations, those that bad blood just runs deeper and is way more potent between the women. Like it's very rare that like men and women have like serious like rivalries that are like gameplay related that aren't related to like being exes or something like that because that's why we have exes. Like we don't need Ashley and Dario K here. That's why we have an exes franchise like whatever for people like that, for people who've been romantically involved and now like don't get along. And I think rivals really should be like gameplay driven stuff. Like Amber and Fessy works because it is gameplay, but like for the large part, this 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 elimination was, I don't think it was like unfairly like in Adam and Steve's like to their advantage in any way, but I do think that like it's just not fun to watch. And then of course we've seen in back to back episodes where the all male pair eliminated an all female pair. And in both of those, like again, John A, who was right there on the last thing, didn't have arms long enough to hold on to five poles. And you know, Steve is just running around. He's got three in one hand and three in one hand because his hands are just bigger and his arms are longer. Same thing here where we're trying to like hold on to stuff and the other pair just has like significantly longer wingspans and larger bodies, right? Large, like broader shoulders, et cetera, et cetera. So I really, that's the change that I would make. If we couldn't, if we, like, I don't want to see an All Star Rivals season. I would love to see like an All Star Team season, heroes versus villains, like an Inferno or Gauntlet, like good guys versus badasses, something like that. Like you know, and in this specific elimination, I would have liked to see them having like a totally unspooled like length of rope that they had to like respool. I think that would have been much better to see. I also think specifically from a production perspective, because they don't know which teams are playing in the elimination, there's not an opportunity for the production team to try to like balance or choose an elimination that could like meet both team strengths. So since they don't know what's going in, I think that's just like, you know, forward thinking like, okay, if it is like guys and girls or whatever, like maybe they just expected people to drop the rope, like maybe they thought about it. But I would have rather seen them spooling it where it was like work. And in that, even in that case, like Adam and Steve are still probably at an advantage like 8 times out of 10. But in this specific scenario where Adam was like dog sick maybe the girls pull it out. All in all, I'm very disappointed to see Sylvia and KellyAnne going home because I really wanted to see more of Sylvia on the show. I wanted to see like how she's kind of evolved as an athlete, like from the last time that she played. Well, I mean the last time that she played on Final Reckoning, not All Stars 3. From the last time that from her younger self a few years ago. And I would have loved to see what her and Shane and Ashley would have been able to do, like moving forward, as an alliance, like moving forward a few rounds into the season. We haven't seen enough, like we haven't seen like really any strategic sort of conversation between them, or just even like a, hey, we're gonna work together, we got each other's back. um who do we want to keep, who do we want to get out of here, which star teams do we want to target, that sort of thing. And yeah, it's not looking good for the Lavender ladies, and I'm for one, am very disappointed by that. But after this, we get uh Sylvia and Kellyanne's really, really lovey dovey exit. I watched this episode on Friday morning, which was Valentine's Day, and it was like that final montage of all of their arguments set to acoustic guitar. It was very romantic. They seem to have come a really long way. We get a conversation of them in confessional, hugging it out. They're both 2025 brides to be. They're getting married a few days apart, and they're planning to hang out outside of the show. So lovely, lovely end to tumultuous relationship. The last thing that we see before we end the episode is Ashley and Anissa um, come to a head when Anissa makes a, what she thought was an innocent, but like in all honesty, what was an off-color remark about Ashley's heritage, culture. Um, she refers to, she's getting wine for Ashley, and she's letting Ashley know that her wine isn't as chilled as she might like. So why doesn't she put one of those redneck ice cubes in it to chill it out? And this offends Ashley. Now I do think one, Ashley has a right to be offended by this, but two, I think largely like Ashley's already frustrated with Anissa's sort of like lack of like, I mean, for me, I think Anissa's kind of here for a vacation. Like she's vibing hard, but she's not playing hard. And Ashley is here to be competitive and to be taken as a serious competitor. She even makes a comment that says, I'd rather get sent in and go home at the beginning because they were scared of me than to get dragged to the end because everybody thought that I'd be easy to beat or because they think that I'm weak. And that is just, you can just see like they're like, that is, those are just two like are typically very different players, where Anissa really is like trying to go along to get along as much as possible anytime we see her on these shows. It's been one of my criticism of Anissa over the years is that she really isn't like competitive like throughout the season, and then like we get to the, and people keep her around because she's kissing ass most of the time, and then we get to the final episode right before the finals and we get a confessional from Anissa where she talks about how she's never won and she's been right there at the end just to get eliminated before the finals. And I'm like, have you not put it together here yet? Like, they're keeping you here so they can eliminate you right before the final and guarantee themselves a space in the final. And whereas, Ashley is kind of the opposite. She's making waves, she's making enemies, she's trying to get out her physical and strategic opponents like throughout the game, and that works out for her sometimes, and in some seasons it doesn't work out for her and she's gone before the halfway point. But one of these players has multiple wins and the other doesn't. I'm team Ashley here. I'm not going to talk too much about the fight. We do see Ashley kind of share her frustrations about Anissa with Fessy. I'm not going to talk too much about the fight, largely because I want to talk about it with Maddie next week when we discover. I mean, when we discuss episode 4. I think we are going to start episode 4 probably revisiting the aftermath or the fallout of this fight. So I think we'll have some more context on what happens on this particular night next week. So I'll wait till like to discuss all of it with Maddie. I suspect that Maddie probably thinks Ashley's doing too much. But I totally understand it. Like from a competitive standpoint, from from a competitive standpoint, like I don't want to come here and lose all season long and watch my partner lay around all day just for us to go into elimination right before the end and to get sent home because you weren't ready to compete. Like when it was finally time for you to like get in the field. Like so I will say about Anissa's remarks though, like specifically the redneck Ice Cube thing. I don't think Anissa was had any malicious intent. I don't think Anissa even intended it to be a joke at Ashley's expense. I do think the the perception of that Ashley has, and she talks about, hey, I never joke about you. I never joke about anything personal. I think it is definitely heightened by the fact that like she is already frustrated with Anissa's sort of like perceived chillness and lack of like gusto so far throughout the game. So we'll see where this all ends up, how this all shakes out next week. My final thoughts on this episode: pretty lackluster episode. I thought it was fine. I actually didn't think it was as boring as last week. I thought this was fine. I think there's some good like strategic setups, but what I am really concerned about is that the players that we have in the power seat right now on this season so far are players who are, I don't want to say risk averse, but they are the type of players that really do like to play like they're not gonna rock the boat. Like Fessy, Nani, Devin, they're not gonna rock the boat. They're not gonna be any of those teams that are gonna take a shot. So they're gonna weed out these like quote unquote weaker teams. I think Nicole and Melissa, maybe even Frank and Sam. You know, I gave Frank a lot of credit this episode, but you know that luck might run out next week. Adam and Steve, we're gonna see the Adam and Steve continue to visit the elimination round until Fessy or Devin decide to take a shot at one or the other. I think Nani and Turbo, that star is probably really safe. They have so many friends. And you know, Ashley K and Dario will they probably will come under fire in the mid game. So I think it's going to be really boring from like a voting and elimination perspective. Like I think it'll be really predictive because I do see a lot of the same people being at the top of the board for what am I trying to say, for daily wins, for challenge wins, for power, unless Adam and Steve get them a win and then they decide to kind of go after one of the stronger teams. But we'll see how it all shakes out. I did like the challenge. I wish we would have seen more of it and less of that like choppy, like spliced up editing that we've been seeing in modern challenge seasons. The elimination round I felt like could have been tweaked a little bit more just to make a more interesting TV product. I don't know how this would have looked in person. I think if you tell me I'm just gonna watch a bunch of people stand and try to collect rope, I think that sounds boring in person too. So I don't know why they wouldn't have them doing like actual work, like respooling the rope, maybe running and transferring the rope, maybe not so fast, which we haven't seen in a while, wrapping a rope around a metal structure. Like, come on, y'all. Um, but yeah, elimination round was a little boring. The puzzle was meh. Like I guess. Really sad to lose Sylvia this early. I wanted to see more of her. I need to see Adam and Steve stay up out of that elimination next episode because it's getting old. It's getting tired. I need them to win so they can just stay out of there. And then we'll see what happens with Anissa and Ashley at the top of next episode. Hopefully. Well, that's all that I have for today. Thank you for watching. We will be back next week for the Challenge All Stars as a duo again. We will also be dropping our reactions, our recaps of Netflix's Love is Blind season 8. We're going to be a week behind because Maddie's traveling, but we'll try to get caught up if we can, or else we'll just be a week behind. No problem. And then, of course, check out our channel to see our continued coverage of the Traders US season 3. And as always, link to the playlist of the rest of our videos on All Stars Rivals will be linked in the description box below. And as always, please do not forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you all for watching. I've been Mariama. This is the Reality Roundup. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.